Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's Digium webinar, The Basics of SIP Trunking, providing cost savings and flexibility for your business communications. My name is Brian Ferguson, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Switchvox and Switchvox Cloud and Digium Cloud Services here at Digium. And I'm very excited to present today's content to you. We have a really great crowd, and we're very excited to have today's webinar. It's the opening webinar to our quarter, and we have some really great content, so we think we will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. First, we're just going to go over the agenda and some housekeeping first. First, some housekeeping. This is a one-way audio webinar, so if you have any questions that you would like to ask throughout the webinar, please take advantage of the Q&A panel within the On24 application. I will address as many questions as I possibly can that are not answered throughout the content of today's presentation, and we will do that at the end. We have about 30 to 35 minutes of content, and then we'll use the remainder of the time, or as much time as it takes, to answer all the questions that come in. So again, take advantage of the Q&A panel within the On24 application. There will also be some poll questions to answer as well throughout. So I encourage you to take advantage of those, and your feedback is greatly appreciated. As far as an agenda for today, we'll talk just for a second about who Digium is. So if you're not familiar with us, you can get acquainted, and we'll just talk a little bit about who we are, where we come from, and a really quick overview of the general product lines that we offer. And then we'll look at some interesting SIP statistics. We'll talk about what is SIP trunking, the very basics, the definition of it, some other definitions of things that you might want to know with SIP trunking. We really get down to the basics, as is said in the title, talking about again, the definitions, how SIP trunking works, at a little bit of a technical level, but not too much, just so that most people can understand the technology, how it works, and where the savings come from. We'll talk about the remainder of the benefits of SIP besides just cost savings, which I think a lot of people know about. We'll talk about how to prepare for SIP trunking, some of the things that you need to get your network ready, some equipment that you might need. We'll talk about those pieces as well, and then we'll finish up with some Digium solutions when it comes to SIP trunking and the products around SIP trunking. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in here. I just noticed a question that came in that says, will the slides be available? A recorded version of this webinar will be available, as well as the slides, so yes. All right. So a quick overview of Digium. We were founded in 1999. We're known kind of by three different things today. Number one, we are the Asterisk company. So if you haven't heard of Asterisk, Asterisk is the world's most successful open source communications platform. We have well over 3 million different endpoints connected to Asterisk servers around the world, and Asterisk is downloaded over 2 million times a year. So we have a big imprint on the communications industry purely with Asterisk. If you add up all the endpoints that are connected to Asterisk servers, it actually comes out to the second highest or second most used phone system in the world. So again, we have a big imprint on the communications industry purely with Asterisk. We are the original creators, the founders, the stewards of the Asterisk project, and then we sell services and products to help people build their own communications applications with Asterisk. So that's kind of the open source side of our business. Then we have Switchvox, which is the business communications side. Switchvox is a turnkey unified communication system that's built on top of Asterisk. So if you to compare how those things go together, Asterisk is like the engine of a car. It's kind of the underlying code that makes a phone system go, whereas an engine is the underlying machinery that makes the car go. And then Switchvox is the remainder of the car, all the cool things that make it fun to drive and comfortable. Think air conditioning, power steering, power windows, GPS. Well, that's what Switchvox does for a phone system, with call recording and mobile applications and video and collaboration tools. So it's a business communication system that delivers enterprise-level features at a price that small and medium businesses can afford. And then we have Digium Cloud Services, which is SIP trunking. We have our own SIP trunking services. We also have Switchvox Cloud, which is the same business communications platform, but available in the cloud as a cloud service as opposed to a product up front. We are a privately held company based out of Huntsville, Alabama. We have a development center for Switchvox in San Diego, as well as a data center and development center for Switchvox Cloud and Digium Cloud Services in Atlanta, Georgia. We're well over 180 employees. We're growing like crazy. We've had profit growth since 2002. And as you can see, we have some big partnerships with some large scale organizations as well. And at the very bottom, we've won many awards, including several last year, the Unified Communications Product of the Year for 2015, Internet Telephony Excellence, Innovation Award for Internet Telephony in 2015. And then if you're a reseller of communications tools or technology, we've won the CRN 5-Star Channel Award for the 7th consecutive year. We have a fantastic channel program as well. Okay, enough about us. Let's dive into the SIP trunking content. And I want to kick things off with a poll question. So I just kind of want to poll the group and see, how do you connect to your phone service provider today? Do you have analog connections, kind of the older style POP lines or plain old telephone system lines? Do you have PRI or T1 or some other digital connection? Do you use SIP trunking today? Or are you just not sure? You're not really sure what systems are used in your organization. So if you take just a second and answer that question for me, do you have analog lines, PRI, T1, or other digital connection, SIP trunking, or I'm not sure? All right. So let's go ahead and see what everybody said. Okay, so we have the vast majority have PRI today, PRI, T1, or other digital connection. Second would be analog lines. We have a couple that have SIP trunking today, and then a small percentage are not sure. So that's a really good breakdown, so I appreciate everybody's feedback. So let's take a look at SIP trunking now and start with some SIP statistics to kind of give you an idea of where SIP trunking is in the market today. So Software Advice, a publication, an online publication that does lots of research studies and things all for different types of technologies, did a SIP trunking report in 2015. And they found that the current SIP trunking adoption rate based on their study is 69%. So 69% of all businesses that were surveyed by them, and I think it was like 10,000 different businesses, 69% of those use SIP trunking in some form or fashion, whether that it was their primary connectivity, maybe it was their backup connection, but they used it in some way. That same report found that 96% of people were satisfied with the call quality in SIP trunking. And if you're familiar kind of with the history of SIP trunking, one of the reasons that adoption rates were pretty slow back in the mid to late 2000s was that SIP trunking had a reputation for having substandard call quality. That it was great, it saved you a lot of money, but you just were never really sure if the calls that you had were going to go through, and if they went through, that they were going to sound the same as you were used to with your T1 or analog connection. Well, as you can see with this statistic, that fear is basically completely gone. Assuming that you have some of the infrastructure in place to support SIP trunking, and we'll talk about what that infrastructure looks like later on in today's presentation, you should have zero problem with call quality and connectivity with SIP trunking. All right, and then lastly, 50%. Average cost savings over PRI with SIP trunks is 50% off of your current monthly phone bill that you use with PRI today. You should expect at least 50% savings with SIP trunks. And then Sorrel Slaymaker from Gartner Research said the big reason to move as soon as you can to SIP trunks is simple. You can save up to 50% over your PRI bill. So very real numbers and from third-party resources as well. Okay, so now let's get into the basics of SIP. What is SIP trunking? Maybe you're one of the 70+% that uses PRI and haven't heard of SIP trunking, you're using analog, or maybe you have SIP trunking but you're not really sure what it is, and maybe you're paying too much for your particular version of SIP trunking. So let's take a look at what SIP trunking is. So here's the technical definition. So SIP trunking is the delivery of inbound and outbound phone service over a data connection using a combination of session-initiated protocol, or SIP, and real-time transport protocol, RTP. SIP trunks are used in conjunction with an IP-PBX as replacements or analog circuits. All right, so what does that mean? All right, so now what does that mean? What is the real definition in simple terms? So SIP trunking is the ability to make and receive voice calls over your existing data or internet connection. So pretty simple. What used to happen for voice connectivity over PRI or analog, and you purchased dedicated circuits for your voice service and connections to your phone company, that idea is gone. Now you can use your existing data connection with your existing internet connection that you pay for with whatever particular provider that you use today. You can use that existing connection and then purchase SIP services through a SIP provider, and you no longer have to have a dedicated physical circuit anymore, and you can save a significant amount of money over your existing PRI connection. Okay, so let's take a look at some other definitions besides just SIP trunking. So there's SIP is session initiated protocol. It's the key protocol that produces VoIP. Trunking is another term that you're going to hear a lot of, and trunking is just a dedicated line. So we used to purchase lines in the PRI and analog days. Now you purchase SIP trunks, and most of the time SIP trunks can be delivered in kind of two different ways. You have metered, which is I have unlimited number of trunks. I can make as many calls as I want to, concurrent calls as I want to, and I pay per minute. Or I can pay by a channelized model, which is I pay. So for example, I would pay for 10 SIP trunks, and I could make 10 simultaneous calls on those SIP trunks. And I could make unlimited minutes on those SIP trunks. And we'll talk about the differences between those and the advantages of one over the other in just a little bit. But those are kind of the two ways that SIP is delivered today. Public switch telephone network is just your the network that once your phone call goes out of your organization and goes out into the world to be routed to its destination, that routing system is called the public switch telephone network, or commonly referred to as PSTN. Primary rate interface, lots of you guys have this today. It's PRI. It's the standard service level for carrying digital telecommunication services between network and user. Internet protocol, private IP PBX, which is basically an IP phone system. The vast majority of phone systems that are sold today are IP-based, which basically means that they use the internet protocol for their connectivity. It sits on your company network as opposed to having a dedicated voice network. You use your existing data network and data connections in order to make calls in between your own employees. And then with SIP trunking, you make those connections over your internet connection to the outside world. Voice over Internet protocol is VoIP, a general method for transporting voice through the Internet. Now, VoIP can be a confusing term in that it is often interchangeable. So some people talk about VoIP as an IP phone system. Some people talk about VoIP as SIP trunking. Some people use, you might have heard it called hosted VoIP or cloud-based VoIP, which is hosted or cloud-based phone systems. It can be confusing because some people will interchange that term. For today, we're going to use it as the general method for transporting voice over the internet. So, we'll just use it as SIP trunking is interchangeable with VoIP. And then internet service telephony service provider, or ITSP. In the past, you'd have a dedicated voice provider that would deliver a dedicated physical connection to you. Now it's all virtual, and that provider that you will pay for SIP trunking is called an ITSP, or internet telephony service provider. Okay. So now that you're aware of some of the terms available, let's take a look at how SIP trunking works. So we've referred to the PSTN, which is that cloud out there to the left. That's the public switch telephone network. That's once calls get delivered from your organization. So look at the phones on the right. Somebody makes a call. It goes through your PBX or your phone system. Once that phone system determines where that call needs to go, it delivers that call to your ITSP, or internet telephony service provider. And then it makes that call over the internet to the PSTN. And then the PSTN, the public switch telephone network, routes that call around and then delivers it to the provider of your user, or your destination, or your caller that you're trying to call. And then you can also make calls between locations as well over the internet. So your call goes from your phone to the PBX over the internet to another location, maybe one of your own. Maybe you have a remote location or multiple offices that are geographically dispersed. You can make those connections together and make those calls for free over your internet connection. So that's kind of how SIP trunking works in really, really simple terms. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of SIP trunking. Why do people want it today, and why is it so popular? Number one is that cost savings. Companies are seeing savings up to 70% on their monthly phone bill with SIP trunking. It's cheaper. You typically get cheaper per minute rates than what you would be used to with your traditional phone service provider. You can use your existing connection, so you're already paying Comcast or Time Warner or somebody for your data connection. Now you can use that data connection as the connection to the PSTN or public telephone network, and then you can eliminate your PRI. You no longer have to pay the PRI hardware costs or connection costs associated with that method. So that's significant savings there. You save on management time. You now only have one connection to manage as opposed to two or multiples. And then you eliminate connection inefficiencies. PRI is extremely reliable. It's very good. There are lots of people that will continue to use PRI for a long time because it definitely has its advantages. One of the inefficiencies with PRI, however, a lot of times is that, say, a PRI allows you to take 23 simultaneous calls on one PRI connection. But let's say a company that does pretty good call volume, and they max out their concurrent call volume at 25 concurrent calls. Well, they're only going to use 2 concurrent calls, even at max, off of a second PRI that you're going to have to pay for. So the other 21 concurrent calls that you're paying for on that PRI go unused, and it's you're just paying for a large chunk of that PRI that you're never going to use or use very, very rarely. And SIP trunking allows you to pay for only what you use. You pay for the trunks that you need, or you pay for the minutes that you use. You don't have those efficiencies at all. So significant cost savings with SIP trunking. Ease of management. You can reduce the number of connections to manage, like we mentioned already. Consolidate your infrastructure. Fewer connections to manage, simpler. Takes less frustration. It requires less frustration or generates less frustration for your IT group. Less connections to manage, and then less equipment to manage and potentially fail. You don't have the piece of hardware that connects the PRI to your office that you have to manage and have another point of failure as well. Scalable is another one. You can add and remove trunks in minutes. If you need another trunk with a SIP provider, you call them up. They take your order, take your payment, and they say, okay, here you go, you're ready to go. And you're done. And sometimes in minutes you're up and ready to go. So if you see some growth, or maybe you consolidate or go backwards, you don't need to have as many trunks as you had before. You can scale back just as easy. Pay for only what you use. So if you use a metered plan and you're paying per minute, you're only going to pay for the minutes what you use. Those inefficiencies that we talked about earlier are gone. So again, you're only paying for what you use. All right, so let's take a look at how to prepare for SIP trunking. So there are some key things that you want to make sure that you do in order to take advantage of the extensive cost savings, the ease of management, and the scalability of SIP trunking. There are some things that you really need to do to make sure that you have in place in order to have a successful deployment. Because the last thing you want to do is have drop calls or bad call quality because you don't have the right infrastructure in place. So let's take a quick look at what that is. So the first one is bandwidth. Bandwidth is, for lack of a better term, kind of the lifeblood of SIP trunking. So bandwidth is fortunately readily available and relatively inexpensive today. Service providers have lots of promotions for really high levels of bandwidth that are available. It used to be in the days where you get a T1 connection and you'd have 1.5 megabits per second and you'd be really excited. Well, now you're 100 megabits per second, 500 megabits, a terabit per second. So bandwidth is very accessible, readily available, and relatively inexpensive. And a good rule of thumb to make sure that you have enough bandwidth available is to know that one voice call is roughly 100 kilobits per second. It's actually a little bit less than that. It's about 80, 85, somewhere in there. But 100 kilobits makes the math easy. So if you take 100 kilobits per second and multiply that times the number of concurrent calls or simultaneous calls that come into your business at a max, so what the busiest time that you would ever have, what is that? Multiply it times 100, and that'll give you the bandwidth that's required to support voice on your network and to support SIP trunking. You take that number and add that on top of what you currently use for data, whether that's to manage your business applications for your CRM, your email servers, file sharing servers, your internet connectivity for all your users, your YouTube downloads, Facebook uploads, all those things that employees will do from time to time. But your main core business, how much do you need to support that? Add that additional amount, and that'll make sure that you have enough bandwidth to support SIP trunking. But bandwidth is incredibly important. If you don't have the bandwidth required, You will get call quality issues, and you will have drop calls. It just will happen. So make sure that you square that away before you move to SIP trunking. All right, an IP PBX is another one. So you want to make sure that IP PBX, or a modern phone system, basically gives you the ability to ensure that you have you don't require any additional hardware to use SIP trunking. IP PBXs are VoIP-enabled or IP-enabled phone systems are natively SIP typically, so they just connect SIP trunking automatically. So you don't need to worry about whether you have the connections needed. I have to buy gateways or interface cards in order to make that work. You typically have to buy those kinds of things for PRI and analog connections. You don't have to do that with SIP trunking today. So just make sure that you either have an IP PBX, or we'll talk about here in just a second what you do if you don't have any IP PBX and you don't have the budget to buy a new phone system. We'll talk about how you can still take advantage of SIP trunking. One of the other things that I need to mention here is when we're talking about network infrastructure, kind of to backtrack to bandwidth, one of the other really important things that you want to make sure that you have in place is something called QoS. So QoS is a feature that's available on a network router. So a router is like the traffic cop for your network. So a router sits in your network and says, oh, this data needs to go here, this data is coming from here, it needs to go over here, so it kind of routes traffic around. Well, QoS is the prioritizer. It's what tells the router, okay, this group or this particular data that's coming through needs to be the priority, no matter what. So if I have, 100 megabits per second bandwidth, and 80 of it is being taken up by somebody downloading or uploading videos, if you do video production, the other 20, how does the other 20 get prioritized? Does the video get all 80 megabits per second? How does it get prioritized? So QoS allows you to do that. And the advantage, or why it's so important with voice, is that because you can tell your network, okay, my connectivity with my customers and me being able to talk to customers on the phone is the most important thing for my business. So that no matter what else is going on in my network, the voice calls are the most important. So QoS can ensure that no matter what else is going on with your company, your voice calls will get the required bandwidth needed to talk to your customers. Business-grade routers have the functionality for QoS. If you're a small organization and you're running off of a consumer-grade router, that's something you would typically use for your home, I strongly recommend that you spend a little bit more money, doesn't cost a ton more, and purchase a router that has QoS in it so that you can ensure that your SIP trunking or the trunks that you're using now are receiving the required bandwidth to make your calls at all times. Okay. So we talked about IP PBX and phone systems, and modern phone systems not only connect to SIP and save you a ton of money there, but they provide mobile applications and they provide call recording and all kinds of really cool things that are available with modern phone systems. But what if I don't want a company that I just don't have the budget for a new phone system today? It's just not in the cards. Wasn't in the budget for the year. It's really not going to happen. But I would really like to take advantage of SIP trunking today. How do I do that? Well, it is absolutely possible to do so. What you need in order to make that work is what's called a gateway. And a gateway allows you to connect SIP trunking services to legacy phone systems or digital or analog phone systems that if they have a PRI or T1 connectivity for that PBX or phone system, you can connect a gateway PRI to that legacy PBX, and then SIP trunking can connect to that gateway. And it can allow you to take advantage of these 50 to 70% savings on your monthly phone bill and not upgrade your phone system. So it is absolutely possible to take advantage of that. So if you have any questions about what you need to make that work, let us know, because we definitely have the gateways that can allow you to do that. And with the savings that you're going to have with your monthly phone bill, you can pay for that gateway in just a couple short months. All right. So let's take a look, now that we've talked about the basics of SIP trunking and some of the things that you need to look for, let's talk about Digium solutions and what kind of things that we offer. We have SIP trunking here at Digium. Digium Cloud Services was created a few years ago, and we have Digium SIP trunking services. So it's a perfect fit because especially if you have a switchbox system or if you have an Astra system, we develop SIP trunking to work primarily with those two things. So it is designed with Asterisk in mind. It's designed with Switchvox in mind and has easy configuration and easy setup. And we are the Asterisk company, we are the Switchvox company, so it was built for that. However, it's not required. You don't have to have a Switchvox or an Asterisk service server to use it. It works with any PBX out there. One-stop support, so that's great for people that have Switchvox and Asterisk. You have your support already from us from your phone system. Why not get support for your SIP trunking? So if you have any issues, you can go to one place to get support. We don't have setup fees available with our SIP trunking, so everything is just the cost in which you would pay to have those trunks. There's no setup fees. Flexible plan choices, we'll talk about in just a second. And then we don't have contract required. If you want to do month-to-month, you can do month-to-month for your SIP trunking. And that's great if you want to try it out. Try out SIP trunking, get signed up, see if you like it, see if it matches the quality that you need, and then you can sign up for longer term after that. So who can use Digium SIP trunking? New Switchvox customers, new Asterisk and Asterisk Now customers, free PBX customers, old Switchvox customers, old Asterisk or Asterisk Now customers, any third-party PBX that accepts standard SIP trunks, and then anyone with a legacy phone system and a Digium gateway. So pretty much everybody out there, with a few exceptions, can take advantage of Digium SIP trunking. Real quick slide on some Digium or DCS, Digium Cloud Services, SIP trunking services. We have inbound features available, DIDs for the US 48, toll-free numbers are available, unlimited channels, so if you want to do metered, so you can have unlimited channels and just pay per minute, you can, or a flat rate with channelized. All the major codecs are supported with our SIP trunking. On the outbound perspective, we have local and long-distance metered and flat rates, free calls to other DCS subscribers, so if you know anybody else that uses Digium SIP trunking or Switchvox Cloud, you can make free calls to those people. D722 or HD voice is available between subscribers. E911 DID registration is available, and then we have extended area and international calling available as well. We talked a little bit, kind of throughout, about different plans, metered and channelized. So metered, of course, is just the ability to make unlimited calls. I can pick up the phone. I know no matter, it's just gonna, I know it's gonna make that call because I'm not paying for a certain number of channels. I have a limited amount of calls, and I just pay per minute. With the Digium SIP trunking, it's $1.50 per minute for US and 0.19 for toll-free. It's more dynamic. It's great for people that have seasonality in their business. Think about a tax preparation service. So H&R Block is a company example. They've been really busy for the past few months. Once this tax season rolls by, they're going to be a lot slower. So metered would be great for them because they're going to pay a little bit more during tax season, but no, off season they're going to save a ton of money on their phone service. Whereas channelized is one call per channel, and then I just pay per channel. So I pay $18.45 per channel, and then I can make unlimited calls on that channel. So if I'm more comfortable with a static phone bill, I can plan my costs. I know I'm going to pay this amount. I have really high call volume. I know I'd be in big trouble if I had a metered service. If I have high call volume, then channelized is definitely for you. You can add and remove those channels for capacity in minutes. Extended area international calling are always metered, and then again, unlimited plans starting at $18.45 per channel. And then here's the rates. We have $1.50 per minute for metered, and then for channelized, we start at $18.45 for a 3-year contract. But if you want to do month-to-month services, it's $22.95 per channel. And again, no setup fees with those as well. You just pay for the monthly fee. Okay, and then I just wanted to wrap up kind of the end with talking about the phone system side of things. And the last poll, second to last poll question, excuse me, what type of phone system does your business have today? Is your system ready for SIP trunking today? Do you have an older analog system? Do you have a digital key system, something that uses kind of proprietary connections and you had to rewire your offices with specific digital connectivity? IP enabled, maybe you have a VoIP system now or you're just not sure. So if you take just a second and answer that poll question for us, that would be very, very helpful as well. Again, what type of phone system do you have today? Analog, digital, IP enabled, or I am not sure. All right, so the vast majority are IP enabled, so you're ready to go. Those digital and key and analog people, don't fret. You can still take advantage of SIP trunking. All you need is a gateway. But the rest of you are ready to go without any equipment. All right, so let's take a quick look at Switchvox, and I just want to take 2 or 3 minutes just to talk about our Switchvox phone system and kind of how it can help you not only from a SIP trunking perspective. We have the Switchbox Anywhere philosophy where Switchbox can be deployed in any method that you can think of. We have Switchbox Cloud, so if you're looking for a cloud-based service where you want to pay month to month for your phone system, you don't want to pay a large capital expense up front, you can take advantage of Switchbox Cloud. All the features that are available with Switchbox are available in Switchbox Cloud. So, and all features are included. You don't have to pay anything additional for any individual feature. We have Switchbox for VMware or virtualization. So if you want to virtualize, you have a virtual environment with VMware, you can add Switchbox to that. So you don't have to buy dedicated voice hardware at all. You just use your existing VMware infrastructure, take advantage of the high availability opportunities with VMware, the scalability of VMware. You can take advantage of all of that with Switchbox as well. Then we have Switchbox on premises, so if you're more comfortable with managing your system yourself, you want kind of dedicated voice hardware, we have that, just kind of the traditional way to have a phone system. And then we have mobile applications available as well that make Switchbox completely mobile. We have Switchbox Softphone for iPhone that allows people to be completely connected from away from their office. And that is included with Switchbox Cloud and available for Switchbox on premises as well. The last couple slides are just some really kind of high-level benefits of Switchbox. All features included. We don't have feature licensing with Switchbox. You have a user on Switchbox, they get access to everything. So that includes faxing, mobile applications, call reporting, call queues, all the contact center or call center features that are very, very expensive with a lot of systems are all included with Switchbox. Again, we have mobility, the Softphone for iPhone and Android that allows me to make calls, transfer calls, record calls, all from anywhere that I have my smartphone. I can see status information, who's available, away, who's on the phone. I can see that from my mobile phone. So lots of really great mobile connectivity. Ease of use, I think you'll see if you take a demo of Switchbox that everything is extremely easy to use. It's all drop-down menus and quick links. Everything is extremely simple. Our manuals are all in line within the GUI, so if you need any help finding anything, you just hit a little question mark in the GUI, and you have all the help that you need. Integration and customization, we have an open API system that allows you to do business app integration. We have the integration built with Salesforce. So if you have Salesforce, we have integration built where when a call comes in, we take the caller ID, we send it to Salesforce. Within Salesforce, there's a little panel off to the left that pops up that shows that caller ID, brings up the account or contact that's associated with it, allows you to log the call from that little application. So really great integration there. And then we provide the tools that give you the ability to go out and integrate yourself. The other integration we have built in, Google Chrome, Dialer, Firefox Dialer, Google Maps. Whenever a call comes in, we can pull up a Google map and where that call initiated from. So lots of really cool integration. Future-proof, we typically do 2 to 3 major feature releases a year that constantly improve Switchbox. So even if there's not a feature that you don't see today, that doesn't mean we're not going to have it in the next 6 months from now. And then lastly, we're web-based. All the features and applications and tools that are available in Switchbox are web-based, so you can use them from anywhere. You're not tied to your office at all. All right, so that wraps up the content for today. SIP trunking is really, really great. It can save you a ton of money. As long as your network is squared away and solid, you can really save a lot of money and have a great experience with SIP trunking. I highly recommend that you make the jump. So the last poll question is just, is there anything that we can do to help from here? I would like to speak to a web specialist about implementing SIP trunking. I would like to personal demo of Switchbox phone system solution to talk about how it connects, how that connects to SIP trunking, some of the other features that are available that can really help my company. I need network design assistance to talk about some of the network infrastructure changes that you might need to make. Or I would like more information about upgrading my legacy